Well, pay the price. That is the message from President Trump to House Republicans up for re-election in 2018. Either get tax cuts done or lose the midterm elections. Here to weigh in on that is Chair of the Program in Business and Finance at the King's College in New York City, Professor Brian Brinberg, and former Ohio Senate Democrat Minority Leader Capri Cafaro, and former Chief of Staff to Senator Mike Lee, Boyd Matheson. Thank you all for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Very early.
Morning.
So, Capri, I will start with you. Ladies first. Do you think he's right? I mean, can they get this tax reform done? And is it imperative that they do so?
I do think that it is imperative they do so for a number of reasons. Certainly politically for the GOP. The Republicans control both chambers of Congress in addition to the White House. And I think that there are, Republicans all across the country looking to potentially hold members of Congress accountable in 2018 if they don't come through on some kind of legislative victory, which they have not been successful with thus far, particularly when you look at something like repeal and replace Obamacare. In addition to that, the economy really has been, perking along very well, I think, under the assumption that tax reform is going to happen. And so it'll be interesting to see, for example, if Steve Bannon decides to wage a war in primaries against some of these sitting incumbents
if they don't get their act together. To do so, yeah.
Exactly.
Boyd, specifically, 240 House Republicans are up for re-election in 2018. We have seven Senate Republicans up for re-election and one open seat in 2018. Do they stand to lose those if they can't get the work done?
Yeah, they've just shown time and time again that they can't come together to actually govern, and that's what the American people want. That's what they were elected to do. And so I think you are going to see some real challenges if things continue to go as they have been, where they're just trying to solve their own political problems rather than trying to solve the American people's problem, specifically the hardworking families across the country. We've seen Ivanka Trump be dispatched to talk about that kind of tax reform. How do we help those middle-income families in particular? And I think, though, that more than the Republicans need a civil war, they really need a civil debate out in front of the American people, talking about how these tax cuts are going to impact real people across the country.
Yeah, make it a little more public than they did the Obamacare conversations that they were having. Brian, how difficult will this be?
Well, sadly, it's very difficult. You'd think Republicans could come together on an issue that seems to be core to their platform, but for some reason they can't seem to agree. Look, they actually need a resounding victory here. It's not just that they get something done. They need to get it done big. They need it to get done earlier than they're talking about now, because the American people have lost faith, as Boyd said, in their ability to govern. They need a huge victory here. Look, it doesn't guarantee that they're going to get reelected next year. It's a prerequisite to them getting health care reform done next year so that they can actually make a legitimate case to the American people that they can keep their promises. They have not done that yet.
Yeah, and House Speaker Paul Ryan said that he hopes to pass the revised version of the Senate bill this week to increase the chances that the tax reform plan would be enacted by the end of the year. Capri, in terms of all across the country, we're not just talking about the impact on House Republicans and Senate Republicans. It also trickles down to local races. And then for the Republicans, the gubernatorial races, there are 36 gubernatorial races up for grabs in 2018. Yeah, that's why I'm asking you about it.
I think, honestly, the national debate only has, so much impact on more localized races. I mean, certainly I think that Democrats, for better or worse, and I think that it's frankly not a really strong strategy, will try to tie Republicans to, the Trump administration and in some way, shape, or form and turn that into some kind of a negative. I think the Democrats really need to step up and show what we stand for in order to win elections. And I think that, Republicans, and again, using my home state of Ohio, I think that the folks on both sides of the aisle running for governor, which is an open seat because we have term limits, are really more focused on their individual track record and trying to leave Washington out of it, because frankly, Washington is showing that it is ineffective and cannot govern.
I want to get to Boyd quickly. I mentioned Paul Ryan, and I know that one of your thoughts was that, as he tweaks this, he could make things worse.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see if he tries to do too much with the budget resolution portion. I think they're going to go ahead and get that through this week in terms of the House. But the bigger issue is, can we get down to? We saw them spike the ball a little early when it came to the health care reform. They had the Rose Garden ceremony. We are just at the beginning of the beginning. No one's really even seen the details. This is still kind of a framework, and there's a long, long way to go. And so what we have to look at is, do they really have a vision? Too many in Washington just have a vision of themselves in office, not a vision for the American people.
Nicely
and that's
said.
what they've got to get back to. They've got to get back to that.
Nicely said. Brian, final thoughts.
Look, you can't talk about hope anymore. The time for hope on tax reform is done. You get it done. You get it done by Thanksgiving, and you move on to your other promises like health care. If they can't do that, forget about 2018.
All right. Thank you all for joining us this morning. That was great to have you all with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Good debate.
Thanks, Heather.